I just want to say, everyone stay vigilant. Do not let your head drop. Keep your head up, but stay vigilant to this task so we can make it through this. Our ancestors went through much worse during their time period, but yeah, we could be serious about the times we're facing and what's up ahead, but don't drop your head.
Hey, family, welcome to a special episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. We have two treats for you tonight on this special edition or special episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. We have our co-host tonight, Bobby X. Fryer. He is the co-host of the Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby. And we also have Mr. Rodney J. Littles, and he is co-host of the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney. We will tell you how you can watch and see both of those episodes twice a month or monthly. We will let you know at the end. So without further ado, like I said, we're doing a special episode tonight of the 2024 post-election, the presidential election. So, and the outcomes of it. Anyway, so without further ado, Bobby, why don't you get us started?
Well, we want to welcome everyone again to this show. Again, as Rodney's already stated, this is our post-election recap. A lot of feelings, a lot of sentiments tonight. I'm sure Rodney will add along a lot of substantive conversation to what's happening. So our emotions are admittedly raw. I know mine are, and we really feel like tonight will be very informative. Get the raw emotions for how we're feeling at this moment. Something should be captured. So without any further ado, I want to start off basically giving my 2 cents about what happened last night. So in the recap, as we know by now, Donald Trump won the election handily. Let's just be honest. He won it handily. The numbers were very disappointing. We had a number of voters that simply just did not vote on the Democratic side this time around. Those reasons are plentiful, but to get down to the hardcore reason as to why, it's up to that individual, and we'll discuss more about that tonight. But my emotions really range from anger to frustration. The biggest thing for me watching this happen last night was basically the mandate that voters have given to Donald Trump. And for me as a black veteran, and Rodney, you're a black veteran, honestly, I feel betrayed. That's the feeling that I have. I feel betrayed because black veterans, a lot of us are fathers, grandfathers, uncles, cousins, all have volunteered to basically protect this nation when this nation has never loved us back. And to see that last night where you had Donald Trump running up against a more than qualified black woman in this election, it felt like a slap in my face. That's the way I felt. So, to say I'm surprised, not really. Disappointed, angry. Those things are my emotions, and I'll go more into it later, but I want to see how you brothers are feeling as well.
Right now, how you feeling, brother?
Well, sleepy right now.
I didn't get much sleep either.
Touche.
Man, even after I turned the television off about 1:30, I couldn't unwind, man. It was like a shock. From what I had seen early on, with the effort that was made starting in August by the vice president to pick up the ball and run with it, or the baton was passed, I think she did a remarkable job. Her team did a remarkable job. I think basically, a couple of people called me and asked me what my impressions were, why, what happened, what could have been done. Well, basically, you have to look at the deck that was shuffled and the cards that landed up in her hand. Had the president decided earlier on before the primary season not to run and given her a chance to enter the primary and she won it, she'd have been much stronger going into November. Much stronger. Maybe she wouldn't have won it. The point is, she'd have gone through the gauntlet, gained the respect, built up reputation, been in debates all around the country during the primary season with her colleagues. That would have been very healthy for the party to see, because as folks gravitate to different candidates, they come back together in November for who won the primary. That didn't happen. That was a major, major part that's missing in the hand that she was dealt. So people have to really look at what happened. What was the situation? How was it outside the norm? How was it handled? So Rodney J. Littles tried to look at that perspective. And how would she have played it differently had she been given that opportunity before President Biden decided to run and enter the primaries? That's my global perspective, down and dirty. The numbers are a different story. We can get into those. But Rodney, the last show that we had, the gentleman said decisions about elections are made around the edges. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
Well, when we get into these stats, that's where it was lost. Not by an insurmountable number, but that's kind of how I saw it. Yes, I'm disappointed. I'm thinking about my children, my grandchildren, my unborn great-grandchildren, and what is going to be done to this country. How am I going to leave it to them? That's what worries me.
Yeah, appreciate that, Rodney. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, where I'm at, what I'm feeling based on, what you said, because you basically segued me right into what I was going to talk about with my feelings. So, like you guys, I'm tired. I'm so glad that I didn't get to, watch the results, the play-by-play, because I was co-host for a watch party, for my fraternity and whatnot, and us in the Zetas, Sigmas and Zetas did one last night, and it was outstanding. Yeah, we was at a place that had TVs all over the place, but I was so glad I couldn't, hear anything. Of course, a lot of people ask me questions there because they know, the nature of what I do. And, I just tried to keep, explain to everybody, the whole electoral college process, how that works with the 538, and why each state got whatever the number of, electors that they have, what's that based, what was that based on, and that kind of thing. And how it can be a tie at 269, and then it takes the Speaker of the House to break that tie, and but it's highly unlikely, and that's why 270 is the magic number. So I did a lot of explaining and that kind of thing, but I actually had so much hope. I just you guys know that I've talked about it leading up to this on each one of our shows that we do together, the separate shows for the 3 shows, that I actually kind of saw and predicted that that what the mainstream media was doing as far as setting up black men to be kind of the scapegoat for if Democrats lose. And so, but I talked a lot about that if we want to play identity politics and we want to talk about race and gender, I talked about that that it would be white women and Latino men, or Latin men, let me just put it that way, who would really be the blame if you want to blame somebody. We're talking about race and gender, but especially white women, right? And so here's the bottom line, is that I just really held in my heart, I had really convinced myself that white women are not used to rights being taken away from them. They are used to gaining rights, usually through the hard work of others, or usually because, and I'm not saying white women don't work hard. But let's be honest, white women got a lot of rights because black people got their head beat down and bloody, and then they were the beneficiaries. Let's just be honest. But also, their proximity to white men. So they get it both ways. And I think they, kind of play both ends of the deck. So with that, but this time I thought it would be different with them because they're not used to losing rights, and they're losing rights, right? A very important health right. So I'm like, you know what? Something tells me that since white women are not used to losing rights, that they are going to not vote for Donald Trump more than 50%. Right. I was thinking maybe 47%. And I had crunched the numbers, and I understood and realized that if they get on board with the other women of color, then Kamala Harris could win in a landslide. And I actually, not like a Ronald Reagan landslide, and I was telling people Ronald Reagan Mondale landslide, but more of a Barack Obama John McCain kind of landslide is what I really thought. And I was wrong. I really talked about that all night. And when I got to the house, I left the watch party, I don't know, 11 or something, I think it was. And I didn't watch any of it then because I kind of turned it on. And I looked at a couple of interest points that I was wanted to look at, which was like whether Colin Allred, how he was going to do in Texas, how Marjorie Taylor Greene was going to do here in Georgia. I looked at some other points that would make me decide early on what this race is going to be. And you all know that you really got to only look at about 4 or 5 things, and it's like, okay, this is the way it's going to go. And so once I looked at those and realized, I'm like, that's it. It's going to be a landslide for Donald Trump. And then, this morning I took a look at the numbers. But what I want to say real quick before we start our dialogue is that, Rodney, you talked about the number, you talked about how, that Kamala Harris, more time and she would have been able to, go to, if she had longer than 107 days. Well, we have to keep in mind that most countries, European countries included, you campaign for a few weeks and man, it's over. That's it. You don't need 4 years to campaign. But also what we got to understand is almost every point you made, what I want to remind people is that Hillary Clinton had every bit of what you talked about. She had the time, she had the policies, everything you talked about, she smoked it. She smoked every single category you talked about. And this woman he still won in a landslide with her. And, she don't have the race thing to contend with like Kamala, but she definitely has the misogyny, to deal with because she is a woman, a highly qualified woman. And so I just believe that if Kamala Harris would have walked on water, I really do believe the results would have been the same. Not to minimize anything you brothers talk about tonight, because we talk about right now, we talk about our personal, our individual, what we think individually. And I just really think that she literally could have split the seas and walked on water, and she would maybe have gotten maybe 2 points higher in each category, that whatever she lost in.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Real quick. I absolutely agree. Had the same feeling that you had, Rodney, that the issue of women's health rights was going to be the deciding factor for her to get the white women's vote that she needed to.
I did too.
But Ellen, go ahead.
And hold on, real quick, Robbie, real quick before you start, you just reminded me of something. I did hear about some exit polling, and that the number one concern, that came out of exit polling, like I guess all over the country. Don't quote me on this stuff, because like I said, I really wasn't looking at it heavily like that at all. And so was that the holding democracy, right? And I heard that was like the number one thing, and so it got me to thinking, right? If now when we think about this country losing its democracy, we're thinking about the stuff that Donald Trump talked about, right, with Project 2025 and that kind of thing. But however, that is perspective, right? When you losing democracy, losing this country means different things for different people, brother.
Right.
It means different things for different people, and it was a concern. It was a huge concern, and so we just do not see. And I just want, as we continue to talk tonight, is that we do not see collectively this country the same way.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that real quick, Bobby. 68% of voters in Georgia said they think democracy in the U.S. is threatened. 30% said it's secure. But the 68% in Georgia thought that the Biden administration was a threat to democracy. It's perspective, like Rodney said. Go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm right there with you. You know, Rodney, you brought up something earlier that was going to segue into what I was going to talk about too, as well, which was you brought up Barack Obama's.
Bobby, you talking about Rodney B or Rodney?
Rodney B. Talking to you.
Okay. All right.
You brought up Barack Obama's 2008 victory against John McCain. Let me just remind people what the numbers were. If you think this was a landslide, Barack Obama beat John McCain in 2008, 365 to 173. When he won in 2012, he won 332 to 206 against Mitt Romney. Now, I bring those numbers up for this reason. I mentioned earlier how we've given basically Donald Trump a mandate. That's what the voters have basically given him. If that didn't give a mandate for Barack Obama, remember, he couldn't get his Supreme Court justice through. They blocked his judge appointments. They blocked several bills and things that he wanted to pass. That was a mandate from the American people. Listen closely now. You will hear it all day. If you turn to any of these major news outlets and when they're talking about this, the American people have given Donald Trump a mandate to do his agenda. All right. He's going to have the Supreme Court. He's going to have the Senate. He may have the House. All right.
Bobby, he's probably going to add two more. You're probably going to add
two more Supreme Court justices.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
That's correct. So when I hear this now, and it's like it's really rich of Republicans to say how Donald Trump has a mandate, but we forget Barack Obama had a much larger victory when he won both times. And both times were larger than this win that Donald Trump will have or anybody since him. And yet he couldn't get his things passed through. They moved the goalposts whenever it's necessary to move them. And that's one thing I think people forget about. Barack Obama had a mandate from the American people that he could not even get his agenda through.
That's right.
But they're going to do this now. Because Project 2025, and I'm blown away by those of us that don't take this stuff seriously. They put a 900-page document. I'm going to say it again. They don't put it together and take that much time to put something together if they have no intentions to implement it.
Spend $10 million on it.
Yes, and so Rodney Littles, to your point, that's where the biggest concern comes from with our children, our grandchildren. What are they going to implement? Okay. And I don't know if the 22nd Amendment may be gone. We know the numerous offices that they're trying to eliminate, Department of Justice, Department of Education, so on and so forth. All of those things are in there. He's actually said he's not going to fund DEI programs, and those initiatives. He said a lot of things that we may or may not agree with, and predominantly don't agree with. But that is something that greatly concerns me about what happens to going forward. With what is happening now, I know he's getting phone calls from everywhere about doing this. This is a white nationalist agenda. Be clear. That's what this was going to be going forward, because he's going to have white nationalists in his cabinet and driving this stuff. So we don't know how bad it's going to be going forward. I do know this. For all of those that wanted Kamala to explain policy, this goes back to something else you said, Rodney, to explain her policy. He's not giving enough details. This man couldn't even tell you what Bible verse he liked. He couldn't even give you an answer on childcare. And you want her to explain chapter and verse about everything. All right. For black people, I want you to understand, because too many of us get caught up into, well, the Democrats don't do this, don't do that. Have your opinion, okay, on what you think should be implemented and what shouldn't. But this is one thing I'm gonna be hard on watching these next 4 years, God willing, okay? Really even 2 years. If hopefully we can win the House, but that's right now wishful thinking, okay? But here's one thing I'm gonna be hard on, okay, is the policies. Kamala Harris had put out a policy for, let's think about this for a minute. Eliminating student debt, student loan forgiveness, all right? A $25,000 down payment for a new home. $6,000 in child tax credits, $50,000 to start a new business, decriminalizing marijuana. This is generational stuff that could have been implemented for black people. You can't name it that because it's unconstitutional. But this was generational stuff. I'm going to watch this man over the next 4 years do tax credits for the super wealthy, implement tariffs. It's going to make things even more expensive. And we've been talking about inflation. I don't know what economic numbers, what metrics you're going to use anymore, because the numbers that were coming back did not say we were in a bad economy. But repeatedly, I kept hearing people saying, well, it's the economy. It's the economy. Well, what about grocery prices? Since when did we hold the president or the vice president accountable for the price of a gallon of milk or 18 eggs, a dozen eggs? Since when? None of the metrics mattered. Policies didn't matter. Character didn't matter. Women's rights didn't matter. The list goes on and on. It didn't matter. What did matter was you had a black woman running for president. Misogyny, racism, and then on top of that, she's married to a Jewish man. You had an interracial marriage.
And
all
Bobby,
three of those things.
Exactly. And Bobby, Rodney, before you get in, Bobby, I think about those of us who were born in the 1900s and those who weren't. All right. The last time that a presidential candidate was held to this kind of standard for you, and this is for the young people out there, was in 2008, with Barack Hussein Obama.
That's right.
A sitting senator running for president. He was held to the exact same standard as Kamala Harris. And maybe his was a little bit lighter because, he's a male. But I think what made up for even him being a male, and the reason I don't give him an edge, over how the standard that he was held to, because unlike Kamala Harris, he had a Muslim middle name, Hussein. So I think that was enough to, we remember the Barack Obama hanging in effigy and all this stuff. Yeah. We remember this stuff, and we know that, that the young people maybe don't, right? And so, and that's who they're kind of playing on right now. So I just want to, like you said, Bobby, when did we have a president being held accountable for the price of eggs or a gallon of gas? It was Barack Obama. I'm not saying that none of the other presidents that was sitting presidents or whatever that was trying to be held for that, but I guess Barack Obama wasn't held to that about prices in 2028 because he was not the president yet. But in 2012, when he ran again, they held all that kind of stuff against him. And so it's done, and it's done very conveniently. Yeah. Okay, Rodney, I know you was about to say something.
Yeah, well, my question is to my black Republican colleagues on the other side of the aisle. What are you going to do to advance the cause of your people in this administration? What kind of voice are you going to have? It says that it's not about, when they look at you and see you black, they don't ask you what party you try to be affiliated with. Your color makes you a threat. So my question would be to the black Republicans, which is, I think it was like 12% of black men voted for Trump. About 12%. So that would be my question. I wanted to give some context to the demographic of voters from this exit poll in Georgia to give the audience an idea of some of the things that Rodney Butler's been talking about in terms of the numbers. 50% of voters in Georgia were white, compared to 61% in the Edison Research in 2020's exit poll. Okay, it went down. 30% were black, compared to 29% in 2020. It was up. 8% were Hispanic, compared to 7% in 2020. Hispanics went up. 28% voters in Georgia were white men, compared to 29% in 2020. White men went down in terms of voting. 29% were white women compared to 33% in 2020. So there was a drop in white women voting also this round. Okay. 12% of the voters in Georgia were black men compared to 11% in 2020, and 18% were black women compared to 17% in 2020. So in both cases, black voter participation went up. Hispanics, 4% of the voters in Georgia were Hispanic men compared to 3% in 2020. 4% were Hispanic women compared to 4% in 2020. So Hispanic men went up, Hispanic women were the same in terms of who voted, the percentage of voters out of the total vote that came out was counted as being, from this last election. I just want to get some context so people understood.
And I'm glad you broke that down, because I'm sure Bobby probably didn't know those numbers, as well. I'm not sure, but what I will say is that, wow. So now let me ask you this: does it break down how those people voted, as far as Republican and Democrat?
Okay.
Like, for instance, the 50%. You said white people was 50% of the electorate. Okay.
Okay. So Harris wins 53% of women voters in Georgia. Trump got 46%. Trump's share is up 1 percentage point from 2020. Around the margins. Trump wins 71% of white voters in Georgia. Harris wins 28%. That's male, female combined. Trump's share is up 2% from 2020 of the total white voters, male and female.
Mm-hmm.
Harris wins 86% of black voters in Georgia. Trump wins 12%. This share was up 1% from 2020 for Trump, around the edges. But 74% of white men in Georgia voted for Trump. 24% voted for Harris. That percentage for Trump is up 2%. Harris wins 31% of white women voters in Georgia. Trump wins 69%. That was up 2% from 2020.
So basically, it looks like Trump was up amongst white people this time about 2%.
Right.
And what was and for black people, it was what, the same as far as up or down percentage?
Okay, so for black men, Harris got 81% of the black men's vote. Trump 16%. Trump's share is unchanged from 2020 for black men's vote.
Okay. Harris
wins 90% of black women voters in Georgia. Trump won 8%. Trump's share is up 1 percentage point from 2020 of black women. Again, he went up around the edges of us.
Yeah. So basically 2%. So basically white people in Georgia decided, 2% more this time. And because remember, he only needed 11,750 votes or whatever.
Right.
And they made sure he got those 11,000. I'm sure 2%, probably a little bit more than, the 11,000. But yeah, that's something else.
So the turnout is the big issue, Bobby.
Right. I know Fulton County was
2020 versus 2024. What do you got for me on that?
Yeah, I know Fulton County was down from the previous election year in 2020. I think
turnout was down all over the country for black people. And we'll talk about that later. That's a Democratic Party issue, and that we'll be glad to take that up a little bit later.
I have an issue I want to bring up, and I want people to pay close attention to this. I know on social media you get people that'll bring up different things, and one hot topic was the issue about reparations. And, Democrats have been in office and we demand reparations. This is what we want, right? I want to see those same people. I want to see the same energy over the next 4 years. I want to see if reparations is ever brought up, if it ever is brought up in a bill by the administration, any of that. Because these are some of the things that I get upset about. When you get those that talk so maniacal about certain issues like this, I'm not against reparations. Okay. I've always said, define it. People will say it. You got to define what it is that you want. Because if you're talking about a check, you don't understand how Congress works. You don't understand that's where the money sits. Taxpayer money. That's not going to happen. There are other ways I think that you can compensate through reparations. So I always ask people to define it first. But I want those same people that constantly bring this up every time it's a Democrat in office or any time that we talk about Democrats. I want to see that same energy now. If you vote, especially if you voted for Trump in this election, I want to see you sit down or have something going on where he's bringing that up for Congress. Because remember, you're not going to have a Democratic majority in Congress. You know, the Senate is gone and we're awaiting results in the House, and it is razor thin on that number as well. So should that happen? Should the Democrats win the House by some chance, and Hakeem Jeffries is the speaker? That would be interesting to see what legislation gets pushed going forward. But if you don't, and they win the House as well, I just want to see that same energy. I want to see it. That's just me.
Got to talk to our Republican colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Well, you bring up an interesting point because I'm a descendant of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Oh, I didn't know that, Rodney.
Yes, sir. I'm a member of the Justice for Greenwood Foundation in Tulsa.
I've been there.
And I'm concerned because the Biden-Harris Justice Department last month or so opened an investigation into that crime.
Yep.
And they're going to give a report by the end of December. What's going to happen to that report with a new Justice Department coming in? This is a direct impact on my entire family, relatives, and friends who have family that are descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
And if you can't do reparations for that, if you can't get that approved, I can't think of anything more. We're not even talking about Rosewood or Wilmington, but if you can't do it for Tulsa.
Yep. And Rodney, since you brought up the Justice Department, I think that one of the first of all, I want to say that the Biden-Harris administration, I think in 4 years, man, did angels work. Mm-hmm. Those people did a lot of good stuff, man, in that short period of time, and still doing it. But I'm not going to sit around here and talk about policy and all this stuff, because one thing that I think that this election has shown America is that this stuff ain't about policy, man.
I've been adamant about that.
Hillary Clinton is a policy whack. That's right. And, Kamala Harris is not so much of a policy person more than she is a prosecutor. But either way, it ain't about how bad you make somebody look, which is the prosecutor part, or how good you make things look with policy. But I do want to talk about, I believe, one straight failure of the Harris or the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration, and that is the Department of Justice. Garland.
Yes.
This guy is a freaking failure.
Yes.
Period. Point blank, period. And this guy has allowed for Donald Trump to run rampant and just committing crimes left and right. In fact, being that he's a convicted felon, when he talked about now shooting people in the face and all this stuff and lining up folks and shooting them, this guy should have been on him then. Yep. But at the end of the day, man, that is one of the just abject failures that I saw from that administration. And this guy, man, I almost said what they said about Puerto Ricans, and I'm not going to do that. This guy is just no good, man, and he is the weakest person. And I look now and I think, because Barack Obama was trying to make him a Supreme Court justice, right?
He was,
and they held that up. Hell, man, I'm kind of glad. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I'm not glad the guy's in there, but because he would have been better than whatever's there. But yeah, man, he's a failure. He's a failure.
You know why he picked him? The only reason he picked him was because he was someone that he thought could get approved because Republicans had already approved him before.
Yeah,
you know? So he figured he could ram him through, and get a confirmation. And, we all know what happened.
Because we always, the Democrats are always conciliatory to the, to what the Republicans want. And this is what drives people away that is below 50 years old, man, because they want to see a win. And, but yeah, Garland, man, he's just a huge disappointment. And just watch what the Trump Justice Department, and we know it's not supposed to be, his Justice Department, it's supposed to be for the people, but we're going to call it what it is. Trump's Justice Department.
That's right.
Watch what this guy put in there, along with, and I would say this, that that we know that Trump didn't have any policies, right? The man just didn't have any policies. His policy is, drill, baby, drill, and something other, get rid of folks, ship people out.
No tax on tips.
And don't tax on tips, right? So we know what's happening right now are all of these billionaires that he surrounded himself with, that he wants to be. He wants to be that, but he's not, because this man would not release anything about his tax returns or anything about his money or his health, right? So for all we know, we have a poor guy that's about to die in 3 weeks, or 3 weeks after he's, president or whatever, which I had somebody earlier today to say, that they don't wish no harm, but, they wish something happened. I said, look, here's the bottom line. I said, as far as hoping something happened to Donald Trump, I said, I'm going to tell you like this. Hell, I think the Republicans want something to happen to him, right? Because they want J.D. Vance. I said, young. So, yeah, he's young, and Donald Trump did his job. He did his job. He perpetuated all of this misogyny and racism and everything, and he know the heartbeat of America. He know, the man is not a smart man at all. When a professor said that he is the dumbest student he ever had, at Wortham College or whatever, this is the dumbest student he ever had, and I'm a former educator. There's no way I would say that, about any, even if they were. But he felt a need to say that, and but at the end of the day, he understands identity politics in America. Okay, I just heard the other day that he wanted to do what's that reality show that he had where you say tell everybody the Apprentice, and he wanted. I heard the other day, I didn't know this because I never watched that show. I'm not a TV person anyway, but he wanted to do a episode or a season with black against white. Yeah. So they came out and said that. You heard that? They came out and said that. And look, here's the bottom line. Once I heard that, I'm like, you know what? This man understands identity politics in America. It would have been the #1 show without a doubt, the #1 season. I guarantee you that, because it is that perpetual, like in boxing, that great white hope. We can act like Rocky movies were, really about, the red, white, and blue living in America. And all that. Hey, we know what's up. We know what's up. So, and Donald Trump understands that. He's dumb on everything else, but he understands. He understands what the worst people, the worst white people, as far as what they feel in their heart. He understands that. So I just kind of want to throw that out there about Garland. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to bring up something that happened yesterday that I got a couple of calls on during the day and it was on the news. They say that it was foreign interference in the election by these fake bomb call threats, principally in the black side of town where I live. And I haven't seen any proof of it. I don't know if they're trying to protect somebody domestically, but I thought that was a very, very nasty thing to do, to permit to happen or to happen to us. I don't think we as a people are really understanding the energy that's being put towards taking us back.
Right.
We were saying, no, we're not going back. We're going back. We're going back. And I think young people need to understand what that means. They need to talk to their elders and find out what happened during that dark period after Reconstruction.
That's right. And
what happened during Jim Crow. And what happened during the crack epidemic. How is this brought on our people, and how do we survive it? We're getting ready to go back through a time taking us back. We won't be in chains physically, but economically, spiritually, educationally, mentally, we will be enslaved if we don't get it together and understand that you and I are not the problem. That we have to figure out a way to work together to get things done, to keep them a boot off our necks. We have to learn that. We haven't learned that. We've let the Willie Lynch theory be successful on us generation after generation after generation. And if there's nothing else that I learned watching from afar this season, that we will, when I say we, I'm talking about my folks in the Democratic Party. We're so busy on photo ops and Facebook post pictures, we didn't get the work done until it was finished. We did not do the job, period. Why is it that someone calls me today and says, hey, Rodney, I got a call yesterday, the day of election, asking me if I voted, and I voted early. And I'm a super voter. I never miss. Why are they calling me? And why are they calling me after I voted? Why aren't they calling the people that don't normally vote to increase the spread, get around the edges? Because we know it's... So I've got some problems with the methodology, the leadership, and I don't know who they were listening to, but we missed the mark, bro. We missed the mark.
I was
sorry.
Right now, I was sent a screenshot from somebody who have been on this platform, the Black Man's Roundtable. I think she's been on 2 or 3 times, and she sent me a screenshot, and she's like, "What's up with this?" of her, or, of her phone, and it said, this was yesterday, and it said Wednesday, the 6th, and I was like, wait, what? She said, I just took the screenshot of my phone and I wanted to send it to you. And I'm like, so your phone is saying tomorrow?
Yeah.
I said, is that intended for you to maybe that, oh, I voted yesterday, or and she is, and she fits a demographic of somebody who even though her mind is great, but she's a, a older Black woman, but in mine is in perfect shape, but she fits the demographic of somebody that would be confused by that. And this was an iPhone, and I'm like, what in the world? But yeah, her date and everything, and she didn't mess with anything on her phone, but it said today, and this was yesterday. And one thing I want to say, gentlemen, Rodney, what you talked about in that the young people need to understand, what this country's been through, what we've been through, as far as voting and those kind of things. Well, there's a reason that they talked about incessantly. They talked about cutting the Department of Education. That is not by happenstance. And there's a lot of people that want to hear that, right? Because one of the things that's happening in education is that, it's being normalized to stop celebrating, all of these white racist people like Columbus Day. You don't hear nothing about that stuff no more, Columbus Day and all that. And what's happening is, the I guess you could say the whitewashing of education for the past 15, 20 years. I guess you could say it's been blackwashed or whatever, because it's like, no. And so, you figure, well, these kids, okay, because I've even said it myself, right? You can take all the books you want out of the schools, right? You can take all the books you want out of the schools, but see, now it did work back in the day, when you take all the books, because that was you got your information from. But now these kids have the internet, right? And they can go and research anything they want. But look, think about it. Elon Musk, right? Buying Twitter and all this stuff. So yes, they can go, these young people can go and get all the information they want. But if somebody is controlling the information that you get, right, then you still at ground zero. Right. So when we look at the institutions, okay, and that they want to cut out, and then we look at the people that they're bringing forward, what the hell does Elon Musk know about the American? This man is a South African, an apartheid South African at
That's
that,
right.
very racist man, and understands very well, come from a country that understands that where the minority controls the majority. It was only 5% white people in South Africa and 95% black people, but those people were controlled by just those 5 people. He knows how to do that. America is very afraid of that happening. Okay, of just becoming a minority. White people in America are very afraid of that. Okay, and so that being said, they don't even want to give it up a little bit, but there's one person that knows how to do it, and that's Elon Musk. He come from that. But yeah, I just want you guys to think about that for a minute, man. Is that, yes, cutting the Department of Education. People's like, oh, why you got to look at what they concentrate on and then who they're bringing in. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, these young people, they were bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray, run amok on all this crap that they, were getting off of social media. I even had to talk to my daughter, who is very, into what's going on and that kind of thing, because, well, she come from me, and so and my wife as well. But at the end of the day, there was a couple. I had to say, hey, wait a minute, and she was like, oh yeah, Dad, you're right. You know what I'm saying? She understood, but a lot of people don't have, dads like us, man, who will, interrupt our children, our adult children, to say, hey, wait a minute. You know what I'm saying? And so, but she got right back on track and started doing her thing. But I just want us to think about that for a minute, gentlemen, is that, Department of Education, Elon Musk, yes, those kids can get any information they want. And Elon Musk going to be the big controller of a lot of that. And now think about when old JFK or RFK Jr., get in there and be... Man, it's about to be bad, y'all.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna hurt the very people that put him in.
That's right. It's this election. Nothing about this election.
Rodney, when they get the flu, we get COVID. But go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say nothing about this election made sense. Nothing. And I know y'all probably saw the reports a couple days ago. That was like she's leading by 3 points in Iowa.
Yeah.
And then when it came down to the results, Iowa was called, almost immediately after it came. It was not even close.
Yeah.
So
I think she won Iowa by 13 points. So.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't close at all.
Yeah.
So you've had this whole election cycle has been crazy. I've had the discussion with my daughter and my oldest son today, and even my youngest son, asking him at school, what was the conversation about the election? And it was interesting. I said, did anybody have anything negative to say? And he told me, yeah, they did. And I said, well, what was it? What was said? And so he said it was another student talking to somebody else, telling them about how Trump was going to abolish the 22nd Amendment. And 22nd Amendment is about term limits for the president. So, there's just so much uncertainty out there. And again, giving this man unchecked power is so dangerous. And I just sit back and I just say, I don't know if people understand what have you done? What have we done? And especially those of us that don't take this stuff serious, that think this is a joke, that don't pay attention. And to your point, Rodney, about what information you may have access to if you're not ordering certain books, from Amazon or whatever, to actually read about things that's going on. They're only going to feed you what they want you to know.
Based on your algorithms.
Right.
Right.
So, and this man is already, again, he's already shared what he's going to do as far as funding places with DEI programs. And I'm just concerned. And, listen, this election, as I was saying before, and I had a couple things here I'm going to say real fast.
Go ahead, Bobby. You got time.
Nothing mattered. We talked about some of this stuff earlier. I wrote down 10 things. Felony convictions didn't matter. Debates didn't matter. She easily won that. Women's rights, healthcare, character, the economic numbers. We talked about that earlier, how there's moving goalposts, the same metrics that they've told you under this administration are good. They're going to flip these same metrics for him and say, look how great everything is. Yet the same. Okay. Insurrections didn't matter. Civil rights didn't matter. Veterans didn't matter. Policies didn't matter. None of it. None of it mattered in this election. 10 things right there. None of it mattered. It all came down to, again, we said misogyny and sexism, racism, xenophobia. You know, none of those things matter, just how you felt. And these one issue voters, which is what always amazed me. One issue voters, you won't pay attention to everything else, but one thing will get you to decide your vote. I've never understood that, how it can trump everything else, you know, no pun intended, to how some people vote, especially when it came to Gaza, when I was listening to some people from the Muslim community that were talking about their feelings about Gaza. And I just said to myself, like, this man had a Muslim band. None of that resonates with you. I mean, you know, you think this time around it's going to be something different that's going to favor you? History's going to mark this down. You know, we're talking about 60 years of progress, not as fast as we want, not everything we want, but better than what we had when we started. And now all of that can easily be rolled back. You know, democracy is very frail. And we escaped it last time. We didn't escape it this time.
And maybe, Bobby, history won't mark this, because to the victor goes the spoils, bro.
Yeah.
And like I said, they feed the people the history that they want for them to have. And so but yeah, real quick,
which is exactly what dictatorships do.
Absolutely. And I want to talk real briefly about I was on this past Saturday morning, I was on a discussion panel about suicide, you know, in young black men, the suicide rate and how fast it's going up and those kind of things, right? And we had some young men there, and I was glad to see them there. We had a couple of even young ladies there, and you know, looked like maybe high school age children, young men and women. And so when we talk about, you know, disbanding the Department of Education and that kind of thing, and what those young people are being fed, there was 2 terms that I told them, you know, to put in their phones, so it can create an algorithm, a different algorithm in their phone, because you know that the algorithms in their phone is nothing that's going to educate them, nothing that's going to help them for the most part, you know.
Right.
And so I told them to put in chattel slavery, which we've talked about here, you know. And what was the other one? Oh God, I forgot the other term I told them to put in, but I told them to put in 2. And so, but just like I did on one of our programs, I forget which one, whether it was with you, Bobby, or Rodney, where I talked about, I think it was both of you guys, where I talked about the whole phrase of barrel of laughs. Y'all remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And so what I did is some kind of, you know, Kamala Harris came up in the conversation, and so I had those young people, right? And I retold that story about, you know, and I wanted them to Google it right now. You know, Google the origin of barrel of laughs, because we talked about Kamala Harris and how I explained to them, right, how you know, black people, you know, they would even say they're laughing, they would say we're cackling, right, back in the day, and that you could not ever show any kind of joy, because we're talking about mental health, and this is part of mental health. You could not show any joy. You had to literally laugh in a barrel. And I said, if you put that in there, you'll be surprised what may start coming up in your algorithms. I said, there's a whole lot of sayings in America that are said, right, like barrel of laughs, that they don't make, if it doesn't make sense at all, like how can you put a laugh in a barrel? I said, there are a whole lot of terminology and phrases and verbiage that's used that dates back to slavery. It doesn't make sense because the stuff that they would make black people do never made sense.
Right.
People run around here laughing in a barrel. I mean, you know, and so, but anyway, those young people were so intrigued by that, right? And so one of the takeaways from that discussion panel or whatever that I was on was that we have to research and we have to teach our black kids, but we got to learn ourselves.
That's right.
We have to, and I know Bobby said that nothing made sense about, you know, this election. You know, it was just, and I know Bobby is saying that tongue in cheek because I know, you know, Bobby understand. But at the same time, you guys may have read, you know, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, the ISIS papers. It was one of the early reads I did a very long time ago. She was a political prisoner. She's one of my mentors. I don't know her personally, but I have a lot of mentors that I don't know personally, and so or that I've never met in person. You know, men and women alike, to include Fannie Lou Hamer, right? But what I would tell you about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing is that she said, and they put her away for this. She was a psychoanalyst, psychotherapist. Well, they shunned her. They blackballed her, whatever you want to call it. And she ended up leaving the country because she was going to be a political prisoner. And one of the things she said is that once you understand white supremacy / racism in America, once you understand that, then every single thing that people do in America, it makes sense to you. You'll never be confused again. So for me, in reading Dr. Frances Cress Welsing so long ago, and really have just lived on her words, there's nothing that confuses me. There's every single thing about this election made perfect sense, all the way down to we're going to show black people that a white man like Donald Trump can basically get away with anything he want. But at the same time, we're going to highlight Sean P. Diddy Combs. We're going to doing very similar stuff. We're going to highlight R. Kelly, and we're going to show them that you can't do it. This stuff is by design, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That Bill Cosby, whatever, all the stuff that Donald Trump does, it's like, no, you know, it's the same way that every single time an election happened and they get some brilliant, you know, it's like the white lash with Donald Trump, with Barack Obama. This man was in there 8 years, and the biggest freaking, what do you call it, scandal he had was a freaking tan suit. You know what I'm saying? And that perfection, that I don't even want to use the word perfection, but that, I don't know, that just being raised right, that whole black thing, you know, the black grandmama in there to help raise those kids, because we're not going to have nannies and you know, and that whole structure, it made a lot of people sick. And it's, you know, and y'all heard me say on this show that, you know, that Barack Obama was the modern day after Reconstruction, when they showed Birth of a Nation. That's what Donald Trump was. It's like, okay, it's time for I'm sorry, that's what Barack Obama was. Yes, he's fixed this crap, just like coming out of the Civil War, the Reconstruction. He fixed it. Now it's time for him to go. Okay, and we're going to show Birth of a Nation, and we're not going to have another one of them, you know, in Congress until 1962, I believe.
And no, just to piggyback your point, what you were saying earlier too, I'm always amazed at how little people bring up him getting Osama bin Laden and that whole mission. I mean, they don't even want to bring that up. The world's most wanted terrorist, and under his regime, he gets them. And Americans don't even talk about it. They don't even talk about it.
Bobby, that ain't too much different than, well, you know what I equate that to on the much smaller level is that is no different. I know you've experienced it. I've experienced it. You know, than a non-melanated person, basically telling a veteran, you know, that's, you know, two people ahead of us in line, you know, thank you for your service, because I don't know if they seen something or they had on a hat or something. I don't know. Right. And then when we get there, it's like, okay, silence. Silence. So it's that same, it's like, you know, you cannot be a patriot, and we're not going to acknowledge you as a patriot, right? And so, you know, so that's what that is with, on a much smaller level with Barack Obama. They are not going to give him, you know, they're not going to give him that because it makes him look like a patriot. It makes him look like he loves this country.
And you mentioned one more thing. I'm sorry, Rodney, I'll make this real fast. You mentioned one other thing too, that hasn't been brought up anymore, is Jeffrey Epstein. You know, Epstein and Trump have been on flight logs, I think 7 times, 9 times.
Yes, sir.
People don't talk about it.
Yes, sir.
You know, and so that's just another example what you said of, you know, basically privilege. You know, how the goalpost moves, and it's not the same for all of us.
And you know what, Bobby and Rodney, I would say this right here since you said the word privilege, is that I've delved back into a little bit of the mainstream media, you know, some of the CNN stuff and MSNBC stuff and other places that I usually, you know, don't frequent because it's all propaganda. And Bobby, you and I both know as military guys is that the first one of the first acts of war is propaganda.
Right.
And so so that being said, I've watched. I was reminded because, like I said, I stay away from mainstream media, these cable stuff, and I was reminded by looking at panels and then I look at the white Republican guy that they'll have on there, and the arrogance, man.
Yeah,
the arrogance, and I forget about the arrogance of, you know, and the privilege and the arrogance of these. So I'm like, oh my God, look at this guy, you know, and just cutting people off and doing whatever. All of this stuff is designed as my mentor Francis Cress Welsing said. It is white supremacy racism, and it has now it has really just permeated and leaked into the psyche and the head of our young people. They are being made to see themselves in Donald Trump, that they want that. They want that, right? But listen, here's the thing. What they don't realize is Donald Trump want that too. That's why, because he's not a billionaire. He's not a smart financial man.
Right.
And so he surrounds himself with those kind of people to make him feel that way. And so he's doing the same thing that a lot of these young black men are doing, you know, which is looking at him because we got to remember back in the, back in the 80s or whatever, you know, hip hop artists was, you know, I'm gonna just say rap artists, they was lifting him up, you know, like he was something, he was a player, you know, and so we have to remember that, you know, about Donald Trump. And so that's the way he got those young bros, you know, with the brothers, the young black men, but also on the other end of the spectrum with the young white men is that so for the brothers, young brothers, it's like, yeah, man, Trump, he rolling in it, you know, whatever, right? That's what I want to be. That's what I want to, you know, not even realizing you would never, because they also showing older black men, try it if you want to. Try it if you want to, and watch you be in prison like these other guys, you know, that's around our age, you know, R. Kelly and them and all that stuff. So they hitting a lot of stones, man, with hitting a lot of birds with one stone. But they also showing that young white guy, you know, that young white 20-something-year-old young man, that, hey, don't forget your privilege. Don't forget your privilege. They are hitting it all. So every single thing about the election made sense to me. Bobby, I just hate, and Rodney, I just hate that, you know, that it has been put in the minds of our young people, our millennials, and maybe even our Generation Y or whatever they're called. You know, and that's not to minimize them. It's just say all these letters, man. I have to remind myself that I'm X. I don't even know, you know, and I don't know when in X, you know, in mathematics, X means nothing. I don't know when they're going to give us something. But at any rate, they have been culturally conditioned to not like us,
right?
Because we have gray in our because they've been culturally conditioned. You know, this is not our culture, but they've been culturally conditioned by social media and all this other stuff to hate. Yes. They got a derogatory name for old people. Are you literally running around here calling old people boomers? You know, yes, I understand it came from the baby boomer stuff, but when you're saying it with a negativity of I don't like them, right? A negative connotation. I had to think about when we were in our teens and 20. I never thought of people in their, you know, the generation, you know, 2 generations ahead of us in any kind of derogatory way. Right. And so therefore it makes it very hard for us to teach and mentor these people, these young people. And that is even by design, right? For them to look at us and see old. They don't like, we used to always talk about the other people not liking, their elders and how they throw them away and this kind of stuff. But, you know, people in brown communities and black communities, man, you cherish your elders. We talk about our ancestors and stuff like that. These young people ain't with that. They see us as old.
It's not passed down.
Yes, it's not being passed down. But even when we try, right? If you come to the conversation and somebody already predisposed don't like you, they're not going to hear you. You know,
That's true.
I mean, I think we should go all the way back to Saturday school, bro. We need it so bad.
Yeah.
It was something that was a
Forgot about
mainstay.
that.
Yes, it was a mainstay in our community. The Jewish people still, if I could be wrong because I'm not Jewish, but I believe the Jewish people still do Saturday schooling, and so many other cultures do Saturday schooling. But you know, we started tasting their ice and thinking it was colder, and so we like, well, we done made it, and so we cut all that stuff out. But Saturday school was a thing, and we need to go back to it. But we got a lot of work to do, not necessarily with our kids, particularly, our children, but for the young people, guys. And y'all know that I do a lot of things that put me in a place of with young people, and I'm not just talking about being when I was in education as a teacher in the public school system, but so many other things. And I'm telling you guys, they don't, man. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir because I know you guys probably know this as well. But yeah.
Well, the bottom line is, what percentage of the population in the country are we? 5%?
Are you talking about black males? Or are you
Black
talking about
males
just black people?
Black people.
13% according to the
13%.
census.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So we are, as a group of people in this country, are not in a position to control anything based upon our numbers. It's going to have to take the majority population to find the way to see the right way to go and elect the right people to office. That, regardless of color, race, background, what you want to call it, but that is going to be about the American people. And I saw Vice President Harris as that type of person. Her ethnicity and the color of her skin was secondary in my mind. Period.
She didn't even talk about it at all, Rodney.
No,
she couldn't.
She didn't have to.
Yeah, and she couldn't.
Didn't have to.
Yeah.
But the point is that we are not in a position, number-wise, even economically, because we don't direct our dollars in a way that benefits us as a people. We don't use our money in a way that benefits us. It doesn't circulate amongst us. So we have a disadvantage, and we can't get out of this by ourselves. But we're not in it by ourselves. And that's the problem. White folks think that we're the problem, or you guys are going to get hurt by this. There's going to be collateral damage.
Right.
This is not, this, people don't understand that. They're cutting their nose off to spite their face and not realizing it. Okay? But the issue going forward, in my mind, is where can we have an influence? What kind of blocks can we put together where we can have an influence? And how do we find a way so that we're not crabs in a barrel? We throw away this Willie Lynch crap and wake up. We no longer see ourselves as a tribe. We don't see ourselves as a tribe. We don't see ourselves as related. And that's to our detriment when you're that few people in this country. So there's got to be a changing in the mentality of our people going forward, particularly our young people. You know, we have to realize that it's the white supremacists that are our enemy, not Bobby X, not Rodney B, not Sally Mae. We're not the enemy. We got to figure out a way how we can work together to move us forward as a people. And until we figure that out, we're going to continue to be at the bottom of the totem pole, scraping for scraps. Our biggest influence is going to be on the local level. We need to take a look at our base. Our party leaders need to take a look at our base. Let's look at Georgia. You got the Atlanta metro region. And then you had a couple of pockets outside the Atlanta metro region. I bet you donuts to dimes, Bobby and Rodney, if we look at the numbers of the people who set this out from that footprint, we could have changed this election in Georgia. We could have changed the gubernatorial races and the statewide offices in Georgia. And we could. But we're not together. We're not working together. We don't see ourselves as on the same team. And that, until we can see that, we're going to have a problem. Yep. The other problem that that I see going forward, it's based upon the system. Don't hate the player, hate the system. The system in Georgia is designed through the elections laws so that we have what's called an open primary system. In some of the more industrialized states, it's a closed primary system. Well, what do you mean by that, Rodney? Well, to build a party organization like Rodney Butler wants, you have to have a closed primary system so that people who vote in your primaries have to be registered in your party. If you want to run as a Democrat, you got to be registered in your party. Now, the way with the open primary system, I could go down to the Republican qualifying, bring my paperwork, show my residency, pay my money. I can get in the Republican primary, whatever race I want to get in. Same thing with the Democratic Party. Because it's an open primary. You're not declaring yourself as a party member because you're not given that opportunity under the law. So how do you build a party organization with people who are not members of your party, don't see themselves as members of your party? Now, to the credit of the Republicans, they got that figured out. There's loyalty, there's fellowship, there's cooperation, there's marching in the same direction. So open primary system works for them. So how and why is that a benefit to us? It's not. We can't build a party unless you have that kind of system. So it's hard to get volunteers and workers and loyalty to a party structure that gets people elected and influences public policy to help the people that are members when you can't be a member legally.
You know, Rodney, you talk. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you.
So I don't mean. I'm trying to lay the environment so people understand the political environment that we're operating in Georgia, and why it's difficult for us, and what are our handicaps that we're putting on ourselves as a result.
So, a couple of things. You know, off camera, off mic, or off camera. You know, I talked to you guys about the absence of get out the vote, you know, drives and all this stuff for the Republicans, right?
Right.
They don't need that stuff. They don't care about knocking doors and all this stuff that you hear Democrats. Democrats have people out there working like Hebrew. You know, they have people out there working, man, working, about to get shot. You know, it's like, well, are you going to knock doors? Okay. Here's the thing. I travel with my gun. All right. So if I knock on your door and you do like some lady did, you know, here in Douglas County, some time ago, you know, knocking on doors and somebody pulled out a rifle on her. See, I'm gonna blow that person all the way back through their house. So I'm that's not my strength. No, you're not gonna have me out here, you know, walking up people, you know, there's black people just walking somebody's driveway,
Right.
you know, and you getting killed. So, but the Democrat, you know, but anyway, I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. But what I want to say is, even Rodney, you know, here's the thing. I'm not trying to lay blame or take blame off anybody. But at the end of the day, brother, if you listen to what I've been talking about in the audience, listen, and I've talked about, you know, why they are, you know, why the Department of Education is the first thing they want to get rid of as far as an agency, right? And we talked about why. So you know what, Rodney, we can have all of the you know, the parties doing this, and we can have all of these things in place, you know, like you're saying. But at the end of the day, like you said, we don't see ourselves as tribes anymore. And so at the end of the day, if these young people and other people, not just young people, they haven't talked civics, you know, to me, that's one of the things that the Democratic Party should have been honing on for the last, I don't know, I graduated high school in the late 80s. So that was one of the last times that civic and economics was being taught.
Yeah.
And I've talked about on this platform that in America, this is a free enterprise capitalist country that we live in. If you don't understand civics and money, you know, man, you're lost. You are working stiff out there just trying to scratching and surviving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hanging in the child line. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But you are not serious about, you don't understand hardly anything in America without those two things. They took them out of the school systems, right? That is something that the Democratic Party should have made sure that we're not going to do this, right? Along with codifying Roe versus Wade, along with codifying, the Civil Rights Act, but they're not serious about that stuff, because you're not serious about women and black people. I don't care what your party say that you are. But at the end of the day, Rodney, is that if we don't educate, like I talked about with those young people last weekend that I was with, and I challenged everybody, on the discussion panel, that we have to that we have to research, and then we have to educate. If you don't educate these people, man, they don't care nothing about about the things that that we're talking about today. They just don't. And so, because they don't understand, it's like, why am I tribing up with you?
Right.
Because when you've taken that away, they don't realize, the things like, barrel of laughs and all this other stuff, and blackface and all these things. We're the only. Well, I don't want to say only, because I try not to use absolute words, but in my mind, we are the only race of people who don't want. We're tired of seeing movies about slavery. Right? Now look. Yes, we should be tired of seeing, the white woman savior, okay, in these movies or whatever, right? Yes, absolutely, I got that. But then we need to make our own movies, okay? Because you're not going to hear you're not going to hear Jews talking about, we're tired of seeing movies about the Holocaust. They want the damn Holocaust on TV every day. And we should produce and make our own movies and stuff, and stop being ashamed of that. No, we did not come here as enslaved people. Okay, black people was on this North American shore, in the 1500s. Okay, I understand 1619 and what happened then as far as slavery is concerned. But at the end of the day, we don't need to take out a part of our history, just so because we're ashamed of it or we don't like it or whatever, right? And so yeah, right now I hear you, but at the same time, brother, until I said Saturday school, you know what I'm saying? We, everybody wanted us to push Project, 2025, right? Well, how about let us push Saturday school? Something like that. You know what I'm saying? We need to start controlling our own agenda, our own narrative, and stop letting people, decide what is important to us. You see what I'm saying? And so, but I'm going to let Bobby get in, because I know, I don't want Bobby to forget anything, because, Bobby brings it. I don't want him to forget anything that he got, and I'll keep running my mouth. Bobby, jump in here, man.
Nah, man. I mean, I'm just, you made some great points earlier about not being surprised. And yes, I was saying tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Nothing made any sense. And, it's just amazing. And we know how the lines are blurred with what they can get away with and what we cannot. And we don't talk about it enough. We don't bring it much to the forefront, in conversations to get people to understand, and reminding people. And we spend too much time denigrating ourselves. And that's one thing that is so disappointing. Is how we will disrespect ourselves so much and not focus. I heard so much talk the last week about Glorilla performing at one of Kamala's events in Wisconsin, and I heard the same thing when she opened here in Atlanta with Megan Thee Stallion, and it's like y'all are off topic. Meanwhile, they got Hulk Hogan and Amber Rose. It's like. So and saying like, is this what she thinks about us? No, but these are things that you're making an issue and are ignoring the key parts that affect our community that the other platform is talking about, And so those kind of things puzzle me. They frustrate me as a people, because I know how intelligent we are. We know how talented we are, and these are distractions. And instead of just focusing on the task at hand, stop getting so distracted with the small stuff. We could talk about this stuff later, but if you're really paying attention, you look on the other side, look and see what they're doing. Look at how they're voting, okay? We could talk all day long about, well, they said this and that. Look at how they vote. Look at what bills get introduced and which ones die because one party put it in and the other didn't want to, do anything with it at all. I.e. the George Floyd Policing Act, i.e. the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, those things. Those bills died in the Senate, and then when they were pushed out from a Democratic House at the time. And I only bring that up because we don't talk about those things, And I mentioned before about Barack Obama getting Osama bin Laden, during his tenure. But here we are today. And Rodney made a great point earlier about presenting some positive things going forward. What do we need to do?
Yes.
So, we have the thing that hurts me is we did a lot of voter registration drives, and we did them at all the high schools in Douglas County. And I remember sitting and spending some time with a young man who asked me, I asked him, was he registered to vote? He wasn't old enough yet. He was 17. And he says, I said, well, in a year, you can get registered. And he looked at me, he said, does our vote really matter? And I said, of course it matters, and I laid out a bunch of things for him to think about and consider. And these are the people that I think about from yesterday's election results. These are the things, these are the conversations I had today with my oldest child, my daughter and my oldest son, about, listen, the results are disappointing, but don't you ever let it creep into your mind that you don't matter, that you don't have a voice, that you shouldn't vote, that you should feel lesser. Do not let those things get inside your head, okay? Because we have to keep pushing. We have to.
Right.
If we give up,
right.
if we don't participate in democracy, it's going to swallow us up. History has shown that. So you can't let the results get you down. Now, what you have to do right now is be vigilant. You have to be smart. You have to be on your toes. You have to pay attention to what's going on, because these things will affect us going forward. So I just want to throw that out there just for people to keep their heads up, keep being uplifted. We could only pray that somehow this man has a opportunity to do something where he actually does include some positive things in what his administration can do. I looked at it the other way around. I said, should Vice President Harris become the president, do you realize how much pressure she'll be under to actually deliver? I thought it was a good thing. I looked at it as this would be a great thing if she got in, because she would have that pressure on her to deliver. Because anytime you're the first, especially as Black people, when you're the first to do something, there's a lot of pressure on you to be victorious, a lot of pressure on you to be successful. If you're the first, for Jackie Robinson, you go back and you look back for Jackie Robinson, for Jesse Owens in Berlin, running 100 meters, running the 200 meters and winning the long jump, all these things that when you're challenged about your quote unquote inferiority, same thing with Barack Obama, when you become the first Black president of the United States. So there's all these things that I thought would have been extremely positive had she won. And again, I mentioned some of the policy things that she had proposed earlier. So those are the things that now, as we look forward to these next 4 years, again, emphasizing in 2026, you better be voting in midterms. We don't know the results yet of the House. But if we don't have it, this man's going to have unchecked power, for the first 2 years of at minimum, his first 2 years. Because remember, this is a lame duck session for him. Okay, he can't run anymore. Again, unless, because we've given him absolute power, that he can stay. And you best believe if he's staying, that means he's prepping his sons to stay. He's prepping his sons to be in power, because he loves a monarchy like he saw with Kim Jong-un. Okay, so don't get it twisted, America, into thinking that democracy can't escape you, because you've already voted. We mentioned earlier about a mandate. You've already voted, and you basically said nothing he did mattered. Here's your mandate. Do with it what you will.
Got to live with it.
Got to live with it.
Yeah.
Now, I would add to what you're saying, the 2-year midterm. We can't wait until 2 years to be ready for 2 years.
That's right.
We need folks who are very upset and not happy with how this thing is going, needs to put pressure, if you're a Democrat, on your local organization by coming to volunteer, take a seat at the table, roll your sleeves up, and get your fingernails dirty.
That's right.
Because you might want to complain about the party, But the party is you if you're in the room.
Right.
If you're not in the room, it ain't going to be the party that you want. And we have local elections. We have local elections coming up. Mayors, city council, county commissioner races, judges.
Governors.
We need to be focused on the local elections because that's the level of government that impacts you more than the presidency on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
We have got to get focused. All politics is local. If nothing else, the audience remembers from this gray-haired brother that they call the OG. I am the South Region, Fulton County South Region Democratic Chair Emeritus. They gave me a title. That means I'm the OG.
That's right.
If you don't remember anything I said to you tonight, understand the political environment we operating in, which is an open primary system. And 2, you must get involved in your party organization for it to be the party that you want.
That's right.
And you got to be working year round. This is not a wait to 2 years to get busy because it's a gubernatorial race or it's a congressional race. No, you got to get involved now. You cannot let this discourage you from participating. This should be a motivation because your ancestors didn't let the whip keep them from getting back up. And we have to look at this as we just got whipped, but we're getting back up. And I refuse to go back.
Absolutely.
I ain't going back.
Absolutely.
I ain't going
Me
back.
either.
I want to go back to something before I talk about, what I think we can do going forward. I want to talk about what Bobby talked about with the pressure that, if Kamala Harris was going to get elected, he was looking forward to the pressure that was going to be put on her. Bobby talked about first, and first do have a lot of pressure on them. And yes, she would be the first female president. But I think in our community, in the Black community, we learned a lesson with Barack Obama. In the Black community, we tend to look at our politicians, and this is in my opinion, we tend to look at our politicians like we look at our clergy, right? We tend to praise them and look at them as angelic or something, right? Whereas the other side, they look at them for exactly what they are. Here's what you gonna do, and if you don't, you're gone. Okay,
right.
You ain't no preacher. I'm not gonna straighten up. When you come around, you know what I'm saying. We're not gonna. Matter of fact, I'm gonna slouch in my seat and be like, hold on. You know what I'm saying? Just like we talking about with what we hope that we are able to do, the three of us, with this platform, okay, to be able to help these people get elected locally, but also be able to hold them accountable, right? And so I don't look at you as the clergy. I don't care. In fact, I don't even like when people call elected officials who are not executives leaders. Okay, I don't expect my county commission to lead me in anything. But here's what I expect you to do. I expect you to stop putting those doggone apartments everywhere. Okay, but I don't look at you for leadership. I don't look at if you're a legislative person, I don't look for you for leadership. And so
you're a representative.
You exactly. You are representing me.
Right.
I'm the leader in this,
That's right.
So that's just, one thing. And as far as, what we can do. So I do appreciate that, Bobby. But what I was going to say is that we learned with Barack Obama that, we put on the gloves with him. We put on the gloves. We didn't demand anything from that brother. And he didn't give us anything because we wanted to protect him, right? We wanted to be the first Black man. We know how Black men get treated in this country, and we wanted to protect him. And we did not, mandate anything too much, right? And we the ones who got him elected, and stuff like that. So I think that with Kamala Harris, had she got elected, the gloves were going to be off. The gloves are going to be off for some people simply because she's a woman. They just want to hit a woman without gloves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They
Right.
want to really beat up on the woman, right? But the gloves were going to be off. We learned that from Barack Obama. As far as, what we can do going forward, obviously, you guys know me and the audience is learning that I think that most and many of our problems in the Black community is institutional problems. I hope that with this platform that I really teach our people, young, middle-aged, old, or whatever, that institutional racism is the most heinous and powerful form of racism there is. because you can do it without ever saying the N word. You can do it without even ever looking racist, right?
Yeah.
It is very, very powerful. And so you guys see how I look at these institutions. And look, like you're saying, Rodney, there are so many things that we need to do, the work that we need to do. But let me tell you something. Right now, these people see, when I say these people, I'm talking about the low information voters, right?
Yes.
They are low information voters by design.
Yes.
By design and by the institutions. And so when they see one of us, they look at us as, because remember what I said, they already don't like us because we're old, because of that whole, cultural conditioning that has happened to them. There's a lot of things with these younger people that has happened. And so, but anyway, as we try to teach people who never had civics, who don't understand civics, who don't understand, that and that's why we had Bobby to do it right here on this platform to explain, the electoral college system and how it was born out of racism, right? Yeah. If we always are connecting, even when Bobby talked about how, I think Bobby just talked about when he was talking about the good things that we can do, I think Bobby talked about how with Glorilla and all these folks, and how they was just criticizing, right? But yet you get Hulk Hogan up there trying to tear up a shirt, and he's on probably some kind of the man can't even rip the doggone shirt open. And just acting a fool, right?
I'm still like Amber Rose.
But if no one is teaching our people where that comes from, right? How we always had to, satisfy massa, never show. We had to, you had to put on a whole suit just to go to the doctor because you're going downtown to get on the bus. And if they understood this in Saturday school, I'm gonna keep saying Saturday school at this point, but if they understood where it came from, then I guarantee you, Bobby, they wouldn't. It's like, we doing that thing that we were culturally conditioned to do, and so we're not going to do that. So our education system, man, is broken. We have got to talk to our folks, those of us who are, who are educated. I appreciate this platform because nobody can say, what Bobby Fryer and what Rodney Littles and what Rodney Butler is doing. Are y'all knocking doors? No, but we got a whole doggone Black Man's Roundtable that we spend our time and we spend our energy on, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. And so that's what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? And we need more platforms like this. You know what I'm saying? We need more, the big ones like Roland Martin, but it's the little ones. It's all these conglomerate of little, podcasts that hopefully are making a difference. But now back to my whole thing about what we can do. So again, going back to the institutions, I think one of the institutions that are hurting Black people the most, because it's the party that we belong to. It's the party that we overwhelmingly belong to, and that's the Democratic Party. Okay. Democratic Party has had a lot of opportunities to codify a lot of things I talked about earlier. So we won't have to keep, getting permission to, vote and all this other stuff. And the same way with Roe versus Wade, right? And the Dobbs, and Roe versus Wade. And so you could codify this stuff, right? But I talked about, I think we were offline when I talked about it. How the Democratic Party insists on going after these suburban white women. Yeah. Right. And white women have voted for, and somebody please look it up if, when you see this, because I don't really come with a lot of statistics and look at them. Our friend Rodney Littles is the one who's our fact checker with that kind of stuff. But a lot of times I go by memory of some class or thing I had to put together and stuff, and I just go with that, right? So I'm not worried about putting me in jail for being 1 or 2 points off wrong. But what I will tell you is that white women have consistently voted for the Republican candidate for presidency since 1964, so right around the Civil Rights Act, and when the when the Dixiecrats took over the Republican Party, right? Mm-hmm. And so the Democratic Party keep acting like they're going after these women and they're going to get them and they're going to put all this money and energy into suburban white women. That's all we hear, suburban white women. But yet in 2016. White women voted for Donald Trump, even after he said the whole grab him by the they voted for him 52%. And then in 2020, after they learned that this guy is basically, just a very bad guy, all the stuff, and he was in the White House for 4 years, they actually voted for him 54%. And this time they went back down to 52%. So here is what I mean when I say that the Democratic Party is unserious about black people. Okay. If you were serious, then you'll stop going after these women. How many more 60 years is it going to take for you to realize that that's not going to happen? Okay. It's not going to happen. And so, if you were serious about black people, which is the base of the Democratic Party, then you would be, for the last 40, 45 years, you would have been putting so much energy in the most populated per capita state in the union in Mississippi. Okay. One of the most traditional states, in the union, in Alabama, where so many roots come from, from black people, both those states actually. Okay. In Texas, who got the largest number of black people in the country. The largest number of black people live in the state of Texas. In South Carolina, which is almost a mirror image of Mississippi when it comes down to per capita as far as the amount of black people. Okay. And then you even got Tennessee, with Memphis growing the way that it's growing, but yet 75,000 Memphis-tonians, I don't know, did not vote. They just stayed home. So these people don't have the resources are not being poured into there. And then Georgia, everybody want to give the Democratic Party, credit for turning Georgia blue, And to me, Georgia, when you look at the demographics and the population of Georgia and the population pockets, Georgia got more population pockets than Pennsylvania. Okay. Pennsylvania got, Philly and Pittsburgh, and that's pretty much it, and a couple other places. Of course, Georgia has the whole metro Atlanta. Then you have, the Augusta area, the Savannah area, the Columbus area. These are large population areas. Okay. And so, and they are spread throughout the state, all corners of it. Right. And so, but it wasn't the Democrats. Okay. It was Stacey Abrams. It was Reverend Raphael Warnock who turned this thing blue, and I'm sure with a little spraying of John Ossoff on the side, right? Yeah. But the Democratic Party, y'all hear me talking institutions, okay? It is time in the Democratic Party, it is time for a Tea Party style takeover of the Democratic Party, just like those Tea Partiers did when Barack Obama got elected in 2008. By 2010, the Tea Party, a very small group of people, had been taken over the Republican Party, right? Because they said, hey, you guys don't have our white supremacist values in place, and we're gonna you're not giving us what we want. And those people were screaming at school board and everything else. And so if the Democratic Party is not taking, is base black people serious, just like the Republican Party didn't take their base serious, and they started calling themselves the Tea Party, and we know what happened from there. And so I think that the base of the Democratic Party need to do something similar. I don't care, call it the Afro Party or something, but do something similar, okay, and demand that the Democratic Party take us serious. And I hear all the stuff about third party and all this kind of stuff. Okay. Look, I'm not saying that we should not, do third party. Maybe we should take over one that already exists. I don't know. But I do know these 4 years need to be a mandate on the Democratic Party from black people, and also for institutions. For institutions in this country about what they are doing to black people and the way they are marginalizing and minimizing black people, it has got to stop. And until that happens, until we go after the institution, gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you right now, all the screaming and talking, I just don't believe that it's going to do a whole lot of good. I do believe we have to research and educate our people, young, old, and indifferent. We have to do this, and it starts with us, and it starts with giving us a platform, a serious platform who is serious about us. And if that's going to be the Democratic Party, then it's time to take the Democratic Party out back. It's time to take the Democratic Party out back to the woodshed. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I'll be real quick.
Oh, you got it, bro. You got it.
I remember. I was trying to remember who was running for the Senate. From the state of Mississippi, he had a black man running. It was Ty Pinkins. Ty Pinkins, I was very impressed listening to him and his qualifications and what he was asking of the DNC, as far as money towards his campaign. He was like, I don't need $1 million. He said, I don't need but $500,000 at the most. He was like, I'm not asking y'all for a bunch of money. I'm just asking for a little pinch of it because of the same things that you said, Rodney, about the large black voter populace you have there, and you're not taking advantage of it. You just concede Mississippi every voting cycle. And he's saying, why? Why? With as you mentioned before, with Texas, Mississippi, and South Carolina.
South Carolina.
You have a large black population in those 3 states. I know we can talk about Georgia and the like, but just specifically regarding their
Right.
the number of black people that live there. So it is interesting. And again, losing Texas is another state that's always conceded pretty much to Republicans every voting cycle. But to mention, but just to your point, Ty Pinkins was the young man that was brought up, and I was extremely impressed with him and his credentials. I heard him on the radio talk about himself. So I would just encourage anybody to Google him about his qualifications. He did not win. He lost the Senate, his Senate bid in the election, but he's somebody I would definitely say Google him, take a look and see what he's talking about, and look at his qualifications, because I was, again, extremely impressed by him.
And Bobby, like you're saying, until we demand the party, here's what you're going to do. You're going to give him that money. If you don't, you're going to pay for it. You're going to lose money from me. Every time you ask me about a donation, I'm going to say, what about the brother in Mississippi?
That's right.
And so we talked about a little bit off air as to, why won't they put this money? Why won't they put energy and effort into these states, especially Mississippi and Texas and Alabama and South Carolina, why are you conceding those things? Is and by the way, Texas is now and I don't like using these terminology very much, but they are a minority. I don't consider myself a minority, but anyway, but they are a majority state in Texas. Okay. Yeah. But you're not there's more black and brown people there. They outnumber the white people, but you allow them to draw.
Texas?
Yes, Texas. Texas is a minority majority state.
About it with Hispanics also.
Yeah. That's why I said black and brown.
Blacks and Latinos.
But we talk about black and brown, black and Latin, and
we can't get along with each other, let alone try to go across the street to work with the Hispanics.
And that's by design. And that's by design too. And now you're seeing why,
divide
right?
And conquer.
Divide and conquer. And so but we have to demand that the Democratic Party, why you're not concentrating in these states? Why, like you said, Bobby, why do you keep conceding these states? Is it because maybe a birdie told me? Is it because you don't want for black people to be the one who who causes the Democratic Party to win elections? Is that why you keep going after the suburban white woman? Or leaving these states out? Because without these majority white states that's blue, then it's like, hey, you really see who controls the Democratic Party. And so, but you got all these southern states that but anyway, I digress on that.
It's going to take a couple of things, Rodney and Bobby. One, the DNC, the state parties, the county parties across this country need to do an autopsy.
Yes, sir.
From the top to the freaking bottom, an autopsy. Take a real serious professional review. Take account of what the heck is going on and what went wrong and what we need to do to go forward. One of the key things I hear Rodney B talking about is really being involved.
Yeah.
What all he's talking about is some people who will roll their sleeves up and do the freaking work and push the party to go in the direction it needs to go.
That's right.
That's what you're talking about. Who will be members of the party to do some work that doesn't exist, my brother.
Yeah.
And as far as this issue with why we ignore those areas, because of the Electoral College. That's why.
Yes.
On national elections, okay, and they don't have a Stacey Abrams or Raphael Warnock in their state doing the work in their state. If you got a majority of people, get busy.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take an outside force for you to want to get your own state organized. Come on.
And see, Rodney,
yes,
do we really
you
know
might
that?
need some financial help.
Mm-hmm.
You might need some financial help, but If you're a majority, put the money together, do the work.
But do we know?
Where's the local leadership?
But,
Where's the local leadership?
Right, but do we know, you see, whether they have a Raphael Warnock or Stacey Abrams, because they won't put the, if they do, they will ignore them. They won't be highlighted or whatever, right? Georgia, we know Georgia's a different beast in the South, in the deep South. Georgia is kind of a different beast. And so, because, Atlanta is a mecca of, a lot of, highly educated, black people and stuff like that. But now, and I'm not saying you're wrong or right. I'm not saying that at all, Rodney. What I'm saying, though, is in these states that have all of these black people, okay, I believe there is a Stacey Abrams. I believe there is he was just a reverend. He was never a politician.
Right.
Those people exist. And guess what? The Democratic Party didn't help them get to where they at. You know what? Stacey Abrams did a whole lot of groundwork to get to where she's at on her own. And Raphael Warnock, of course, was the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, which has brought him attention or whatever, right? And so what I'm saying is they're not trying to recruit, those outstanding people, like a Rodney Littles, they're not trying to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have to be this great person or this, but look at just you, Rodney. Look at your story, and I know, the watchers of the Roundup, Rodney know your story and where you come from and the whole thing with Tulsa, and that you're a direct descendant and all this stuff. And so what I'm saying is I do believe that they are there, but Rodney, they are not. I don't think that the efforts are being put in to grow those people like they do with some of these people in California and these other places that's going to not automatically be blue, but because there were some scares with Virginia and even New York State,
New
bro.
York.
Okay,
New
New York State,
Jersey.
You know what I'm saying? And so, so I say to you that, the electoral, and like I said, we had Bobby to break that down. And so first of all, here's the thing. Why isn't the Democratic Party one of their, it should be stuck on their wall to, let's get rid of the freaking, the electoral college. Yeah. They're not serious, Rodney. You keeping a vestige from slavery around? You understand what I'm saying? You are not serious. They almost got rid of the thing in 1970, but it's like, and so I'm talking about the electoral college. And so, but these are the things, what I'm talking about. We have to stop. Look, we learned it with Barack Obama. We gave him softballs because, hey, he's a black man. We know that they was going to beat on him like the Tea Party did, having him hung in effigy and all this stuff, right? So we wanted to take our hands off. But why are we not just grabbing the Democratic Party and other institutions by the neck and saying, here, what in the world we still doing with electoral college only? And electoral college only matters in the presidential election. So, so when we say, it is because of the electoral college, then it's really not, because all those down tickets, like we talk about with local, that stuff means more than at the presidential election.
That's right.
Well, I agree, but the National Democratic Party missed the boat 20 years ago. And the Republican Party had their eyes on taking over state legislators and governorships and statewide offices around the country, and they succeeded in doing so because they wanted to block any type of constitutional amendment procedure that would require all the states approving. So we have to have a long game as a party. Okay, those that are in there, they got to have a long game. And they have to look at each state where we can make a difference and how we build a coalition with both our Hispanic and brown brothers and sisters, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, so that we have a party that represents America. The problem is, you brought it up, Rodney B. The problem is that we have racialized politics in Georgia. And the white flight to the Republican Party has left black folks, the majority participants in the organized Democratic Party, in the state legislature, in the state house, and the state senate. A majority of the members of the Democratic caucus are people of color. So we have racialized politics in Georgia. And we have to figure out a way in Georgia and other parts of this country how we as Democrats can bring together a coalition, multicultural, multi-ethnic coalition, because I don't believe this race crap is a construct from slavery.
It's a made-up construct.
It's ethnicity. Right. We have to bring together different multicultural ethnicities, including Caucasians, based upon policy and what we believe for this country to be about, and work together. That's the only way it's going to happen. And we have two major forces working against us: foreign enemies and people with money who want to keep this from happening. Because the powers that be do not want to see that kind of coalition coming together to effectively push elected officials and public policy that would benefit them. That's what's happening. The money game is much bigger than anything else in this. And we missed the boat because they got us fighting about color and fighting about gender. And in the meantime, they picking everybody's pocket.
Yep.
Everybody. And we're missing the boat. It's right in front of our face and we can't see it.
And you're absolutely right. And I agree with you 100%, Rodney. But again, it still goes back to us educating our people, us educating people in general. You see what I'm saying? And so at the end of the day, when public schools and until they take out the Department of Education, but public schools, here's what they want. Okay. They want cause look, you made up, when I say you, I'm talking about white people. You made up the construct of race. It didn't exist, some 500-600 years ago or whatever. You made up this construct of race to get rich.
Slavery.
Right.
Yep.
And, but then you want to look at us sideways when we talk about race.
That's right.
So look, I'm going to talk about it because you invented it.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? You're not going to shut me up about talking about race when it's a made up construct by you. But when you want for the education system in America, to only talk about how great white people are, let me tell you something, Rodney. We can never bring those coalitions you're talking about together because those coalitions are going to go after each other like they're doing now. Okay, we talked about that. That Latin men in America voted for Donald Trump 54% because, like those men say, "Oh, he ain't talking to me." Even when he come out and tell you that he's talking to you, you still don't believe he's talking to you. You know why? Because you're not educated. Like I said, you could have seen those young people, when I talked about, the barrel of laughs thing, they're like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? And if we continue to teach our people and others, if white people, they know that if these white children learn the truth about America, then they're going to grow up and they're not going to be like them. They're going to grow up. I could be wrong. I heard this today, y'all. But I heard it. It was kind of at the end. It was on the radio. And so, and I could be wrong about this, but I think I'm right. It talked about, I got it right here. Yeah. So it talked about, I guess the biggest number one and number two costumes for trick or treat this year in America. I believe they said the number one and number two was Black Panther, okay, and it was Mermaid. Now we remember the hoopla that white people made up about the mermaid being black. First of all, a damn mermaid don't. I'm cussing on the show. A mermaid don't even exist. What are you talking about? It's a cartoon. But you are fussing because look, if you're fussing that much, then you do not want for your children to have people that don't look like you as their heroes. That's now, right. I go back to the costumes, and again, I heard this today, and I didn't hear it all, so I may got some of this wrong, but I do believe that they said that was the number one and number two costume, and then the person that was talking went on and made a reference that, you know what, this is what a lot of those white women were voting for. They wasn't voting for their medical interest. Health, they wasn't voting for Roe v. Wade. You know what? But because they said that all of these white children, their number one request for those costumes were Black Panther and for, the Little Mermaid. Right. Now we know that children don't see race. They don't even understand the whole construct that you made up. And so all they know is the Black Panther is the bomb. That's all they know. And the Little Mermaid, that's all they know. But when you start to see your children start to look at, if again bringing up Dr. Francis Quest Welsing, the ISIS papers, right? Okay, my mentor. If you start to see your white children looking at and starting to look up to all of these black and brown faces, even if they're not real, because neither one of those things are real.
Right.
You know, Black
Right.
Panther running around, there's no mermaid running around.
Right.
But at the same time, you say, So, Rodney, I say to you, you are absolutely right, 100% right. But Rodney, until we start some Saturday schooling around here and get and let our people understand and let people understand what's really going on and teach and make sure that white children are being taught the correct history and not running around here praising, some lost journeyman named, Christopher Columbus, don't even know where he don't even know where he's at and all this kind of stuff. And then, if you're so afraid that they're going to learn the truth, and so therefore, you want to get rid of the Department of Education, like I said, that is why in Project 2025, which we know have already started even before Trump get in there. That's why they already gave him that absolute power. That we let some of these young black men know that, look, police have qualified immunity right now. Okay. But if they have absolute immunity, okay, you already can't do anything with them with qualified immunity, right? But absolute immunity, if Donald Trump says, okay, there's a protest, and he ordered that this local police department, now is under federal orders or whatever, guess what? They will beat your head until it bleeds all over just bleed everywhere, and there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do, and we're going to see those changes made real quick. So, Rodney, last thing I'll say, brother, you are absolutely right. Absolutely right. But again, I must say, that we cannot fix our bigger, we can't do anything until we're educated. We have to be educated. And we, as you two guys are two of the smartest guys I know, point blank. That is why, you are on this platform. That is why, I've offered and you accept so graciously, your individual shows. And what I'm telling you, it's going to take those guys like us, and then just those regular guys, because I don't think we regular guys, man. We got something going on here. We're a little irregular in that we've seen a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? We've seen a lot of stuff. Our lives have taken us a lot of places. But even just the regular everyday Joe really needs to learn, okay, research, and then bring it to our people. And I guarantee you, Rodney, if we can get everybody, black, white, and indifferent, if we can get them the truth. This is why the Department of Education want to do it. If we can get them the truth, black, white, or indifferent, if we can teach them the truth, those coalitions, you won't even have to bring them together. They'll come together.
Yeah, well, you can't have a slave if they have knowledge.
That's right.
So if you don't have the knowledge, then you're a slave. You're a slave to this system.
Yep.
And I absolutely agree with you, Rodney B. We have to take that responsibility, but we have to begin to see each other as family, as part of a tribe, and part of the responsibility for the future generations to be able to survive in this world when we're gone. The biggest fear I had, Bobby and Rodney, a little personal story. Before we had kids, I was 30 before I had my first child. My wife had my first child. Let's put it that way. And we were hesitant about it because we were afraid of what kind of world we would leave them alone in if anything happened to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid of the world that these young people will be in if we don't find a way to save them. And to save them is what you're talking about, Rodney B. Education. Understanding from whence we come, understanding how far we've come, and how far we have to go. And I like to put this in perspective because I know we could be here all night.
Yep.
But let me put this in perspective so people understand.
Yes, sir.
Not until the year 2111 will we be free longer than we have been enslaved in this country.
Yep.
That's right.
I want people to understand this.
Yep.
It's not that long ago.
No, sir.
No.
2111, before we will be here as descendants of chattel slavery longer than we were enslaved in this country. And we didn't come here as slaves. We came here as doctors, lawyers, constructors, engineers, scientists. We were enslaved people. We were not slaves.
That's right.
Yep.
And we need to pass this down in a way that inspires us to go forward during these times that are ahead of us. We've got to come together. We've got to see ourselves as family. of similar tribes, and we have to work together to save our people in this environment we're getting ready to go through.
And one quick point, we were talking about qualified immunity. That is the major reason why the George Floyd bill did not pass.
That's right.
That's correct.
That is why it died in the Senate.
Eliminated that.
That's right. That's why it died in the Senate.
Yep.
Just so people know.
Yep.
Yep.
Good point, man.
Gentlemen, and I would say it one more time. I think I said it earlier that Elon Musk did not buy Twitter, I guess better known as X now, by mistake. It was by design, gentlemen. It was by design. Look at what's happening.
Yes, sir.
But we have to teach, those young people, those middle-aged people, and those old people about what is happening. You know what I'm saying? We have to teach them what is happening, and our institutions are about to collapse. And so, but with that, man, it's been I'm showing 2 hours and 40 seconds. So we actually beat our other special that we did with coming up to the election, but we can go on. What I want the followers of the roundtables, all the platforms on the roundtable to know, man, with these two guys, we can do this all the way up until, we can do this for 5-6 hours, but what we're going to do, we're going to hit those streets and we're going to educate, and we're going to, people ask, well, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of things to do over these next 4 years. And so, I know these brothers are going to do more than just, this round table as a platform, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, of them, putting it together. They are producers of their individual shows, and they know that that's work. That is work to do. This stuff does not come along easy. So if y'all did nothing else for the next 4 years but this platform, it's enough. Because nobody else, because we don't know other people that are doing these things, and I would say that I brought to the Democratic Party, local Democratic Party here, a couple of years ago, about the importance of platforms, the importance of podcasts, because people did not quite understand the importance of podcasting and these kind of platforms and how powerful they can be. I didn't get a lot of I didn't get pushback, but it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And so, but with that being said, now some 2.5 years later, we see that, and I even explained because I know a lot of people I was talking to, they still watch network TV that people basically below 60 years old don't hardly even do anymore. They don't watch network TV, right? And so, but the people I was talking to, I understood that they that's what they do. And I explained to them that, that if you even look at some of these very, shows that's got good ratings, I'm assuming on network TV, like The View and some of these night talk shows or whatever, I said, what else do they have? I said, think about it. What else? I said, don't these shows like The View, they have podcasts, right? Yeah. So even if they have a very successful show, they still have a podcast. Yep. And so I tried to get them to see it that way. And it's like, I don't get it. But all I can say is this right here now, right? Some 2.5 years later, Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump, they didn't give a whole lot of love to network TV, but it was on every single podcast they could possibly get on. So I say that to you guys to say that I know we're local, okay? But we like I said, you guys are doing. If you did nothing else, the work that you're doing here, nobody can ever say that the three of us, didn't put in the work. So no, I'm not going to do door knocking. Like I said, that's not for me. Because if you point your gun at me, I'm gonna point my gun at you. And so I'm not going to do some of these other things because guess what? There's no advertisers on here. Okay. And this thing is privately funded 100%. And so, you get out there and knock on the door, you get out there and do this. But so I say that to say, man, I appreciate you guys that much because this is the work that needs to be done. And I don't want a monopoly on this. I wish in the metro area that 50 other black men create a podcast that talks about important things because you know what? If they're not listening to me, then they're listening to that brother down over there or they listen to that sister over there or whatever. whatever, right? And so because we got to break down, we got to really hold these institutions accountable for what's happening in our community, you know. And I know we are built to not blame, to look within and to not look without, and even at that suicide prevention, not suicide prevention, but the suicide that I was with, you know, on that panel this past weekend, you know, I listened to everybody. Rodney and Bobby, and I listened to everybody talk about, you know, our responsibility and what we are doing for our numbers to go up, you know, as far as black male, you know, young black male suicide. And then of course, you know, just like clockwork, y'all know what I did, right? I listened, and then I brought up that, listen, we cannot let outside forces off the hook. Institutional racism is a lot of reasons as to why our young boys, young men are committing suicide. You know, when you can't feed your family without working all these jobs, or, you know, even like I said, PTSD, because there was another veteran there. And I said, even with PTSD, right, they want to say, well, they look at PTSD and say, oh, that's a military thing or whatever, right? And Bobby, you know as well as I do that the overwhelming majority of people who are diagnosed with PTSD has never stepped one foot in the military. They are living in those they are living in projects designed to run you crazy. I'm sure y'all have seen that test about, you know, how the walls are done and everything in the ghetto, you know, like they did starting in Germany. And so, and they are designed to run you crazy. And then when you hearing sirens all night for no reason at all, you just turn on the siren, you know, just to, you know, this is what causes PTSD, man. And so we do have to look outside of ourselves sometimes as to what our problems are. So, gentlemen, I'm gonna let you guys close it out, and I'll close out the complete show or whatever. But last words, last thoughts. It's been great. It's always great talking to you guys. And Rodney, you did this last minute. Bobby, we were scheduled to do a show today. Anyway, we just kind of, you know, changed how we're gonna do. And so, and I appreciate y'all understanding, and I appreciate y'all participating and last minute and doing what you're doing.
My pleasure.
All right, Rodney, it's on you. What you got?
Well, this is Rodney J. Littles, and you can catch me on the Roundup with Rodney and Rodney, the second and fourth Thursdays of every month on the Black Man's Roundtable. And let's keep rounding them up.
Yes, sir. Bobby?
I just want to say, everyone stay vigilant. Do not let your head drop. Keep your head up. But stay vigilant to this task so we can make it through this. Our ancestors went through much worse during their time period. But yeah, we could be serious about the times we're facing and what's up ahead, but don't drop your head. I do want to push that. And you can also find me also on CBD Spolitics. You might say, what? It's sports, politics, and entertainment. We just combine the sports and politics in together. So you can find us on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. But I'm also here with Rodney Butler, and we're doing the local lookout. Look forward to it every time we get together, and we try to share and give you some important things about politics and what's going on locally. So look out for us. That's always the first Tuesday we actually record each month.
And in my closeout, I'm going to repeat all that anyway, because that's part of my closeout. I'm going to repeat what both of y'all said, so they really, really got it, and plus the graphics will come up with it and everything else. But I just wanted to say that, like you said, Bobby, I want for everybody to, over the next 4 years, but the next 2 years, you know, every 2 years there's an election in America, okay? Primarily because the House of Representatives are elected. Those 435 members are elected every 2 years. That's right. And we have a presidential, executive, you know, governors and all that kind of stuff every 4 years. And then, of course, we have the Senate every 6 years. So every 2 years, there's an election. So please understand the assignment. And again, I appreciate you, brothers. And with that, because I got it right here in front of me, I am going to read the closeout, which is catch the Black Man's Roundtable the third Thursday of the month. Also catch the Black Man's Roundtable with Rodney and Rodney the second and fourth Thursday of the month. And the Black Man's Roundtable local lookout with Rodney and Bobby the first Thursday of the month. All episodes drop at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.
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 Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.
1,